The 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference, also known as COP26, that took place at the centre in Glasgow, Scotland, from 31st October to 13 November 2021. The Conference of the Parties of the United Nations Framework, the Convention on the Climate Change Issues, and the meeting of the parties of the 2015 Paris Agreement and the 16th meeting of the parties of the Kyoto Protocol, which was postponed for a year due to the COVID pandemic. And the United Kingdom holds the presidency of COP26 until the start of the next COP27. Initially, the Minister of State for the Energy and the Clean Growth was appointed as the president of this conference, and he was removed from 31st January 2020. The several months after he was stepped down, and the David Cameron, the former Prime Minister and the Secretary of the Foreign, that was declined to William Hogg, that was declined to the role, and the Business, Energy and the Industrial Strategy Secretary Alok Sharma was appointed. And Sharma was succeeded by Kwasi Kwarteng as the Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy Secretary. The focus on the presidency for the full-time tenure in this particular summit. The previous summits has been sponsored by the fossil fuel companies to reduce this influence. The UK government decided to sponsor to have a real commitment in place to help them to reach net zero target, and the first principal partners included the three British energy companies and the banking and insurance companies. Before the summit, councils in and around the Glasgow that pledges to plant 18 million trees during the following decade, and this climate forest is projected to increase the tree coverage in the urban areas of those greater Glasgow region to 20% rise, and the summit was described as receiving the cleanest electricity in the UK, and 70% was supplied from the low carbon nuclear power plant. The fossil fuel industry was the largest delegation at this conference, with 500 people are accredited for this pledge, and they call for a green industrial revolution to beat the climate crisis, the emergency in these climate conditions, and many leaders and the head of the state are pledged to fulfill those targets, and ultimately the pledges are to be satisfied in this summit, and the international condemnation over the rising deforestation of those Amazon rainforest and many other issues are decided not to attend. The reason, and under the Paris Climate Agreement, that the countries submitted those pledges that nationally determined contributions to limit their greenhouse gas emissions. Under the framework of the Paris Agreement, each country is expected to submit the enhanced nationally determined contribution every 5 years to ratchet up the ambitions to mitigate the climate change. When the Paris Agreement was signed at COP21, the conference of 2020 was set up to the first to fulfill, and the outcome that the participating 197 countries agreed on a new deal, and that is known as the Glasgow Climate Pact, that aim at staving off those dangerous climate change issues, and those achieving the target if not ensure with the existing pledge, the emission in the year 2030 will be 14% higher than in 2010, decades ago. That means in the next 10 decades, it will be higher in more percentage for that use of those carbon emission that can hamper the climate change, the climate issues. And over 140 countries pledges to reach the net zero emission that includes 90% of the global GDP, and more than 100 countries, including Brazil, that pledges to reverse the deforestation by 2030, and about the cooperation on measures to stop the climate change, including the methane emission, lowering those methane emission, phasing out the use of coal and the forest conservations. India promised to draw the half of its energy requirement from the renewable sources by 2030 and achieve the carbon neutrality by 2070. Some new pledges for the financial help for these climate change issues and the mitigation of this particular condition and adaptations were announced regarding this, and many important companies and MNCs that are involving for the major car manufacturers and other developing countries that have committed to work towards the sales of a new cars and van, that means zero emission globally by 2040 and by no later than 2035 in leading market in the automobile sector, the industry that is related to automation. And the climate finance for the adoption and mitigation, that one of the principal topics of the negotiations, and poor countries want more money for the adaptations and donors prefer to finance those mitigation so as the chance of making a profit. And the climate finance experts and the other important agreement that included the $100 billion annually by the finance department by 2020 for the developing countries, and the members of the other important group that involved and unlikely to reach the agreed amount before 2023. A group of those finance companies that are committed to the net zero portfolios and loan book by 2050. Scotland became the first country to contribute to a loss and damage fund in these particular issues. Many attendees that committed in this COP26 agreement for the net zero carbon emission pledges, and with India and Japan making the specific commitment at the conference that India is the third largest emitter of the carbon dioxide by the jurisdiction, and they set the target latest of date that planning to be a net zero by 2017, and Japan is offered the $10 billion to funding the support in decarbonization in Asian subcontinent. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.